Good evening, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you know, it's just after 8:30 here in the United Kingdom, and we're coming to you live from the studios of British Muslim TV here in Wakefield with this week's edition of Questions with me, Mohammed, Shafiq. Now, we're broadcasting Sky Channel 752 and across social media at British Muslim TV. Wherever you are joining us from around the world, a very warm welcome. Now, we want you to comment on the big stories we're covering tonight. You can call us now on 01924 231 083 or messages on the WhatsApp number, which is on the screen now. And if you're watching this on Facebook, hello, post your comments in the chat box and we'll read some of them on air later. Tonight, first, we head to Scotland to talk to the community activist Claire Bidwell about human rights in Kashmir and why is she choosing to speak out. Now, let's get started on our first topic and guest. The struggle for freedom for those in Indian-held Kashmir has been going on for decades. Numerous reports suggest regular violation of human rights laws, unlawful detention, rape and communication blackouts have impacted on everyday life for ordinary Kashmiris. The Indian government have said that they are engaged in a battle against terrorism and that Indian-held Kashmir is free from alleged human rights abuses, a position surprisingly not rejected. It has been rejected actually by community groups. So why would someone thousands of miles away in Scotland have such a strong advocacy for Kashmiris? And what does this say about this particular cause? Let Kashmir Decide is a grassroots organisation committed to raising awareness of Kashmir issues around the world. Claire Bidwell is a primary school teacher based in Western Scotland. She's a human rights activist. I'm pleased to say Claire is joining us live from Scotland. Claire, a very warm welcome to the programme. Thank you so much that we're having this conversation.
Oh, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, tell us, where did your interest in Kashmir come from?
Well, it simply came actually because the Indian Army went in and illegally occupied Kashmir with their lockdown overnight. Just shortly before that, I'd been in Mumbai and I'd purchased a couple of Kashmir rugs, kept in touch with the Kashmiri salesman. Such was his kindness that I'd had an invite to his wedding in Kashmir the following year. So we'd kept in touch and I just simply asked after his family one day and he'd responded saying he had no idea. And he explained within a few text messages he couldn't contact his family, complete communication blockade, that over 1 million Indian Army were in there, that everyone was confined to their homes, there was no internet access, and he was feared for what was happening for them. This was the first I'd even heard. I'd heard of Kashmir rugs, obviously I'd just bought one, and Kashmir shawls, but I was never aware of a conflict in that area of the world. And considering I like to think I'm quite knowledgeable on what's going on around the world, I've campaigned previously for different issues, but that I'd got to this age in my life and had never heard anything about it. I was just filled with a sense of injustice and then wanted to explore more. And so the more I learned, the more alarmed I became.
Yeah, and that impact that you saw and read about and you heard the human rights abuses and the allegations of that would have had a profound impact on you.
Yeah, I think it was just the simple of things, the connection that you couldn't contact your mother, that was enough. And then obviously with hearing the rest and, you know, all the background, the things that have continued, that they've been brought up in their lives. You know, every Kashmiri seems to have lost at least one family member. Whole family wipes out, you know, men held in barns and tortured. As you alluded to, the rapes, we've had school friends shot in front of their school friends, you know, a whole family's 11-year-old girls, pregnant women, missing, so many missing men and husbands, children blinded in pellet guns, you know, and these are evidenced abuses and people have shared these stories with me as well. And I think it was just this desire, this sense of injustice because it doesn't equate to the life that I had. And it's just, it was a sense of unfairness. Obviously, I'd learned it was back at the UK government's door when they'd left their empire. So such was the extra load on me, I felt. And all I could do to feel better about it was think, right, I want to campaign here. What can I do to make a difference? And it just began this journey of, right, you know, we're never too small to make a difference. And, you know, I'm going to try and make a difference. So 2 years on, there's quite a movement growing, which, you know, I'm proud about. in terms of everybody's effort and energy and just what we're learning, because the Kashmiris are completely silenced. You won't hear them anywhere. We've seen recently, you've seen Malik being locked up, a leader in the struggle. There's human rights activists locked up. There's journalists locked up. Facebook, socialist media workers cannot use their posts for fear of being incarcerated, arrested. My own YouTube channel is banned in India. My own social media accounts are banned in India. Nobody is allowed a voice, and that's not democracy, that's not peace. And what are they hiding? And obviously the evidence of what's going on is genocide, change in the demography. So it's quite scary, but the thing is there is a solution. Through United Nations, yeah. So it's working for that solution. Yeah,
and we're going to talk about the solution just after the break. But then what's the aim? I mean, because India is a superpower in the world, and particularly in that region, huge economic ties, not just to the West, but also to some of those Arab countries that we see in the Middle East. What do you want to achieve through your work?
The first and the biggest thing is that solidarity, this awareness of these people that are silenced, that we're with them, and to raise their voice out where they do not have that. But predominantly the awareness, raising awareness amongst the Western people, because, you know, with me not knowing, it's like, well, you know, we don't know, it's not in our mainstream media. So raising awareness, also bridging like unity and connections. And obviously British Kashmiris, I've, you know, learned so much through them because they've embraced my work, you know, determined to, so it's kind of all encompassing, but essentially awareness to the people to help and support the Kashmiris' demand for self-determination and their, you know, rights for human rights. The more people we have, then the more power we have to go towards our government. So that's our aim at the moment, really, is raising the awareness of the issue.
Okay. We're going to just pause there, Claire. We've got a caller waiting, so we're going to ask her to join us on the call. But if you also want to ask any questions of Claire, 01924 231 083. Let's go to the lines. I think line one, sister, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
What would you like to say?
Hi, Claire. It's me, Sadi, speaking.
Hello there. How are you?
Not too bad, Claire. Nice to see you on TV today. How are you,
Thank
Claire?
you.
Yes.
I'm very well. Yeah, I've had a good day. Thank you.
Yes, I just like to say, as you say, we should support Kashmir. Absolutely right. I just say, just think about poor people in Kashmir. I think we should think about them as well. Like they got poor, like say what we wear here, like clothes. Should think about them as well. Like what they got nothing to wear. What they like, we should think about them. We should support more about them. Like they got no shelter, no water, nothing to drink. We should think about them as well, and we should support them. We should have like a teamwork to support them as well. Like get some money, like get teamwork to collect some money for poor people like Kashmir. Like have them collect some money for them to get some clothes for them, and like that kind of stuff. And you should. Like don't think about yourself, think about the Kashmir people as well, not about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, sister, for your call. If you also want to share your thoughts about the topic we're covering, 01924 231 083. Claire, tell us a bit about, you set up Let Kashmir Decide, the organisation. Tell us a bit about that before we go to our break in about 3 minutes.
Well, it's ever evolving, I think, is what I can say. So it changes shape and changes form. So it's based on a people's movement, really, where because we wanted to raise awareness, and it was based on an idea to go to Kashmir, have an event, a Kashmiri cultural event, with also the different political perspectives, and stream it out globally. And so we set about establishing people in every single country in the world that we could reach to be a connection for that event in Muzaffarabad. So what we ended up with was, representatives around the globe, links with human rights activists that are part of other big organizations, whether they're individual human rights activists or ordinary people that want to make a difference. And so we have a WhatsApp connection between us all and building them campaigns. And it takes different forms. So there are people working on Twitter to change the narrative. We'll have people working on our Yasin Malik international signature campaign, people raising awareness of the tea events, the MP writing, the very different movements. But often, as in life, things evolve or change. People dip in or dip out, or things change. So we evolve with the crisis and the things coming out as it goes. But essentially, anybody can be let Kashmir decide. It's a human rights movement above culture, above religion, above everything. It's at the human level. And like I say, it's all encompassing of everybody. It's about justice and about freedom and against the abuses we're seeing. And for the sake of humanity.
Yeah, that's really important. It's a sense of humanity, isn't it? And this is a conversation we're having with the human rights activist and campaigner, Claire Bidwell. We're coming very close to our break. Claire, I know you're going to stay with us. We'll take more of your calls on 01924 231 083. As I said, obviously, we did invite somebody from the Indian government to come and provide an alternative viewpoint. Nobody was available to come on. But the Indian government has saying that it's to do with its war against terrorism, and its primary duty is to protect its citizens from that terrorism, and that they reject any outside interference in internal matters in their country. That's the Indian government, if you like, approach, which is we would have loved them to have had somebody here to give us that viewpoint, but sadly not, and so.
يا طيبة يا طيبة يا دوا العيان اشتقنا لك والهوى نادانا والهوى نادانا لما سار المركب.
Find your perfect match. Join 3 million members worldwide. Download the singlemuslim.com app for free now.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Questions with me, Mohammed Shafiq, exclusively here on British Muslim TV, live from our studios in Wakefield. Now, as I said, the lines are open 01924 231 083. You can get in touch with us on our social media handles, British Muslim TV. Now, we've got an exclusive conversation with Claire Bidwell, my special guest, joining us live from Scotland. Now, Claire, just before the break, we were talking about Let Kashmir Decide. What is the situation like in Indian-held Kashmir based on the conversations you're having with people there?
In many ways at the moment, very difficult to completely ascertain because of the lack of news being able to come out. So we know they're the journalists in jail, human rights activists as well. So similarly, those that I am able to contact, they already take extreme risks because obviously their phones are checked and the repercussions for them can be quite severe. So even sometimes what they're explaining can be difficult, but I believe there are issues in schools at the moment. We still have what they call the fake encounters, where they're saying they're taking out terrorists, but they're essentially killing off the young men and putting it down under terrorism. Currently with the issues with the Pandits, they're putting up a fear. What I do know with the Kashmiri Pandits, we'll always hear the question when anybody's raising issues about Islamophobia or about the Muslims, they'll say, what about the Pandits? In my experience, the Pandits and the Muslims get on with one another. They accept one another. They support one another. I know people that have best friends with Pandits, and they have, mothers that have helped bring them up that are Pandits. So it's the narrative that's coming out of there is very difficult. So it's unsettlement at the minute, because after the locking up of Yasin Malik, sentenced for life, people came out on the streets sort of complaining about that, and there has been some unrest because the demography is being changed. So the Pandits have then started to leave, and there's been the fear. So people in Kashmir are trying to stop them from leaving. But obviously the questions are remaining. It feels like that, the impending genocide and removing the pandits so that they can go on again. So, it's this narrative all the time that's going on for what's happening. So we're not getting as much news out as we would like because they're not able to report it. And that, I think, is quite telling in itself. If you look on social media, you will not see many people from Indian-occupied Kashmir able to speak up about what's happening.
Now, you referred to Yasin Malik, who was given a life sentence only a few weeks ago. This was somebody who's the chair of the Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front. He gave up violence in 1994 and was seeking, change in Kashmir through the political process. What do you make of his continued detention and the sort of raising of the spectacle of human rights abuses across the world under his name?
I think essentially, even for, going back to the 90s, 94, when you're under a legal occupation, you have certain rights by the United Nations anyway with defending yourself in the territory. So everybody's caught under that situation. And then when you give up your armed resistance, then you're, putting yourself onto the peace platform. And his experience from 1994 to now shows a very educated man, quite a calm, quiet man who has been welcomed in USA, in UK. He's spoken in a big political forum in India. And that's what he asked for. He wanted the peace process and for let Kashmiris to decide. And so what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years under the BJP Modi government, this extremism, which is very upsetting to see. So essentially, I feel that the voices for Kashmiris, that's what they're locking up. So it's almost like, an analogy of everywhere else. So now that you see Malik's been sentenced, and I think it's, a big injustice on its own, but I also am still trying to fathom out how can an Indian justice system, how can they charge him and sentence him for life from when he's from another state and in Kashmir? So I think that, there are gross injustice internationally, and what we're competing against, of course, is the Islamophobia, the extremism, the extreme Hindutva from the BJP government, but also a world that cares more about economy than it does recognise the human rights aspect of this. And that's encompassing of the people of India, and in this whole issue that anyone in South Asia and Pakistan, because the citizens of their country are suffering because of the unresolved situation in Kashmir. So when you're locking up, incarcerating somebody that was accepted on an international stage and then looking and casting back, looking for reasons to put him in jail where they were any of those, they're saying, about them being fabricated, and there was no evidence and he wasn't allowed to speak. And he was sentenced to be guilty purely because he said, if he was guilty of struggling for freedom, then if he was, if that was a crime, then he was guilty. And so sentenced him on that.
You talked about the economic impact and the sense that India was affected by that. We saw the comments, offensive comments by various BJP politicians, which has caused lots of anger in Muslim countries over the last few days. The Indian government is having to take action against, or should I say the BJP party is having to take action because they're realizing the economic catastrophe that could happen if some of those Arab countries continued to oppose what is being said and done against Muslims.
Yeah, good. And some of that I've been working all day. I haven't kept up on all of that, I'm afraid. But if India are recognizing that, because people are calling for economic sanctions, and if that's what I think sometimes with India, they're actually, the Indian BJP and they're proud of their country and they don't like feeling insulted and sometimes this is where if somebody's got a weakness, it's about they want to be seen to be a good country and they want their economic deals. And so if that's what it takes, if it's the sanctions that's going to be the way through and it's going to be world criticism, that is the way through, that they don't want to be seen to be bad, then that's good.
I was just going to say, isn't it also a sense that when you think about India, just park the Kashmir issue, generally multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, and all communities got on pretty well. It's only been in recent years that you've seen the lynching, the human rights abuses, the killing, and this rise of sort of a pretty hard right political movement, which is demonizing minorities.
Yeah, I agree. And, that's like where you look at it and say BJP is ruining India. And, my desire for the Indian people, there are many of them standing up, but so many seem to be scared to speak up about what's happening because they're deemed anti-nationalist. They're just told if you speak up or you speak out, then you're anti-nationalist. So they're often just their go-to defense is, if you're interfering in our integral affairs for me, or you're speaking against our country. But it's standing up for human rights. And I've always said as a school teacher, I would not walk past another school where I saw bullying or things going on in a playground and say, that's not my school, that's not my business. So when it's about human rights, that's my business and it's everybody's business because it's personal to us. Somebody, you hurt one, you hurt us all is my philosophy. So it is very much my business. It's very much the international community business. So to dismiss it's interfering in their integral affairs is disgraceful. The peace, if they're protecting...
Sorry, so Claire, can I just put this point to you as well? Because, they didn't want to come on tonight, but they've given us some of the latest data. And they've said that terrorist incidents in Jammu and Kashmir fell by 59% in 2020 compared to the year before. And it went, it's gone up 32% to June this year compared to the year before. The sense that they are saying it's because of this terrorist threat that they're living in, that they're having taken these extreme measures.
If they didn't have Kashmir under a legal occupation, a country under United Nations charters, and which was a sovereign country before we interfered them, there would not be this unrest and what they call terrorism. So they should be looking, in my humble opinion, at what they're calling is the root of this terrorism, because what we're seeing from the outside world is that the Indian BJP government and the RSS are the ones that are being the terrorists. If the Kashmir was allowed its self-determination, as is entitled, and it's a democratic route, then if people of Kashmir wanted to go with India, fantastic. What would they have to worry about? Essentially, the people of Kashmir want peace. That is what they want more than anything. And so they're locking up peace in the form of Yassin Malik, and their every evidence, I don't know if they're aware, but their actions are not in parallel with their words. And so if we look at the actions, I don't see anybody seeking peace because the terrorists wouldn't be there if we resolved this conflict.
Yeah.
What they call terrorists, I mean.
Yeah, okay. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I just got two very quick questions. One, how can people get involved in Let Kashmir Decide?
Very essentially, join our campaigns. Join our campaigns. The 5th of every month, a cup of tea. Upload it to social media. Look for Claire Bidwell, Claire Louise Bidwell on Facebook. www.letkashmirdecide. Search Let Kashmir Decide Solidarity campaign, or even if you just put in hashtag Solidarity for Kashmir in the Facebook search bar, it will pull up all the activity that people have been sharing. And we're doing, international Release Yassin Malik campaign. In Google as well, you can Google Claire Bidwell. There's the contacts there. I can be contacted in Facebook on Messenger as well.
Lots of ways to get in touch with you. The finally question, I suppose, what more can we expect from Let Kashmir Decide in the coming months?
Okay, well, maybe I can cover the next couple of months, but as I say, it's always ever evolving. So our campaign with the Solidarity campaign, next one will be the 5th, and it's growing every 5th. It's working, the awareness is growing. Our first priority is the work of Yassin Malik on raising the awareness through that and to look at the injustice of that. And there's people working on it in very different levels. And so there's a huge demonstration in London this weekend on Sunday the 12th, from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock, just bringing Kashmiri flags along and Yassin Malik released placards. It's going from Parliament buildings. So we'll be involved in that and sharing that on social media. And we have the international signature campaign. So people can collect signatures there. So lots of different things as much as we can. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. I absolutely love our time together. Sadly, we've run out of time. I hope you can come back and tell us more about your campaign, but really enjoyed our time and best wishes.
Thank you. I would love to. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much. That was Claire Bidwell, who's the founder of Let Kashmir Decide, human rights activist, primary school teacher, who's joining us live there from Western Scotland.